In a world where power, pride, and authority collide, some moments change everything in a heartbeat. And sometimes the people who think they stand tallest fall the hardest, especially when they unknowingly cross paths with the wrong family. This fictional story follows a tense and unforgettable encounter on a quiet stretch of highway where confidence turns into cruelty and cruelty awakens a storm that no one is ready for. Our tale begins with a police officer whose ego outweighs his judgment. Known around town for abusing his badge, Officer Bradley Kent believed he owned the road, believed he owned respect, and believed that anyone who crossed him deserved to be taught a lesson. But arrogance has a price, and fate had been waiting for the perfect moment to collect. On this particular day, a young woman named Amira Tyson, strong, independent, and full of fire, found herself face to face with the officer's unchecked rage. What Bradley didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that Amira's father was only a few steps away, closer than he could ever imagine. And her father wasn't just any man. He was Mike Tyson, the heavyweight legend whose name alone carried the weight of storms. The sun hung low over the quiet California highway, painting streaks of fading gold across the asphalt. Amira Tyson had just finished a long day of training at her boxing gym, something she did not to follow her father's footsteps, but to build her own identity. She loved the rhythm of hitting the pads, the discipline it gave her mind, and the freedom she felt each time sweat rolled down her neck. Today she wore her hoodie, gloves hanging from her backpack, and wireless earbuds playing low music as she walked toward a roadside rest station where she planned to meet her father. Mike Tyson had insisted on picking her up. "Baby girl, I ain't letting you walk alone at dusk," he had said with that mix of softness and roughness only he could manage. She laughed, teasing him. "Dad, I can knock someone out on my own." "Oh, I know you can," he replied proudly. "That's why I'm coming. Someone gotta protect the world from you. They were supposed to meet at the rest stop in 5 minutes." But 5 minutes was more than enough for trouble to find her. As Amira walked along the roadside, a police cruiser slowed down beside her. She barely noticed it until she heard the sharp, commanding voice. "You, stop right there." Amira paused, turned, and pulled one earbud out. The officer, tall, muscular, with mirrored sunglasses that reflected the fading sunlight, stepped out of his car. Officer Bradley Kent. She recognized him immediately. Anyone who lived in the area did. He had a reputation, aggressive, unpredictable, always itching for confrontation. Rumors said he had been suspended twice for excessive force, but somehow he still wore the badge. Amira didn't want any problems. "Yes, officer, something wrong?" she asked calmly. Bradley's jaw tightened. "Don't play smart. I saw you walking close to traffic. That's a violation." She blinked. "Walking? That's illegal now?" "It's a safety hazard," he snapped. "ID, now." Amira kept her voice level. "With respect, officer, I don't think I've done anything wrong. I'm just walking to meet my—" "Don't talk back." He stepped closer, invading her space. "Hand over your ID." Something about his tone felt off. Not normal police protocol. Something darker. Amira slipped her backpack off and reached slowly for her wallet. But before she could unzip it, Bradley grabbed her wrist. "Hey," she shouted, startled. "You're resisting," he barked. "What? No, I'm not." With shocking speed, he twisted her arm behind her back. Pain shot up her shoulder. "Stop! That hurts! You should have listened." He wrenched harder, his grip crushing, his forearm pinning her. "Officer, please, you're hurting me." But Bradley wasn't listening. In fact, he was enjoying it. His jaw was clenched, his eyes burning with a sick sense of control. "You kids think you can mouth off? Think you're above the law?" he hissed in her ear. "Someone needs to teach you respect." Then he twisted. There was a crack, a sickening, sharp, unmistakable crack. Amira screamed. Bradley froze, only for a second, but instead of releasing her, he doubled down, forcing her onto the ground. "Stay down," he barked, breathing hard. Amira clutched her arm, tears streaming down her face. The pain was blinding. "You broke my arm," she gasped. "Should have complied," he spat. But then something changed. Something in the air shifted. A sound behind him. A step, a presence. And the officer felt it before he saw it. A heavy shadow stretched across the pavement. A voice, deep, low, shaking with barely contained fury, cut through the air like a blade. "What did you just do to my daughter?" Bradley turned slowly and his blood ran cold. Standing there, only a few feet away, was Mike Tyson. Not the smiling actor from interviews, not the calm podcast host, no. This was the Mike Tyson whose name haunted the nightmares of grown men. The fighter with hands that moved like lightning and a glare that could make mountains tremble. The father who would burn the world down for his child, and in that moment, his entire body radiated a kind of cold, focused rage that made the air feel heavy. Mike's eyes were locked on Amira, broken arm cradled against her chest, tears on her cheeks, fear in her breath. Then his gaze slowly lifted to the officer. "What did you do?" Mike repeated, each word sliding out like thunder rolling across the horizon. Bradley swallowed. "Sir, she resisted. Mike stepped closer, his fists clenching. "You put your hands on my daughter?" "It was protocol." "You broke her arm?" Mike's voice erupted, echoing across the highway. Bradley stepped back. For the first time in years, fear cracked through his armor. I didn't know who she was," he stammered. Mike's eyes narrowed. "So you only abuse people when you think they're nobodies?" There was no shout, no wild gesture, just deadly calm. The kind of calm that comes right before something unstoppable. Mike moved toward him. Bradley reached for his radio with trembling hands. Back up now!" But backup wouldn't save him. Not from this, not from the storm he had awoken, not from Mike Tyson. The highway had gone silent. The wind paused, the world paused. Even Officer Bradley Kent's heartbeat seemed to pause as Mike Tyson took another slow, controlled step toward him. Bradley stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. He had faced dangerous suspects before, chased criminals through alleys, exchanged shouts with drunk drivers, but he had never, not once, felt the kind of fear he felt now. Because this wasn't just any man walking toward him. This was Mike Tyson. Mike didn't need to yell. He didn't need to raise a fist. The fury in his eyes spoke louder than any scream. Behind him, Amira sat on the ground holding her broken arm, trying to breathe through the pain. Mike glanced at her only long enough to confirm she was conscious, then returned his gaze to the officer. "Step away from my daughter," Mike said, voice low, steady. "Now." Bradley dropped his radio. His hand shook so hard it slipped from his fingers. "Sir, Mr. Tyson, I didn't know. She resisted. I didn't." Mike took one more step. "Say it again." Bradley's throat clicked. "She resisted." Mike leaned forward, his face inches from Bradley's. His voice came out soft, too soft. "You think that excuse is hurting a woman, a young woman, a kid?" He paused. "No. You hurt her because you thought she was alone. Because you thought your badge makes you God." Bradley's breath quivered. Mike didn't touch him, didn't push him, didn't even raise a finger. But somehow Bradley felt as if he were shrinking. "You know what the sad part is?" Mike whispered. "You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice." Bradley's knees nearly buckled. A car pulled up fast from the distance. Tires screeched. Another cruiser, then another. Soon 3 officers rushed out. Back up. Bradley exhaled in visible relief. But that relief lasted exactly 2 seconds. Because the first officer who stepped out wasn't there to help him. It was Captain Ruiz, Internal Affairs Liaison. Stern, sharp, known for being ruthless against abusive officers. And she looked furious. "What happened here?" she demanded, already observing Amira's arm, her tears, the abandoned radio, the officer's trembling posture. Bradley tried to straighten himself. "Captain, thank God. This civilian resisted." "Stop," Captain Ruiz cut him off. "I watched the dash cam." Bradley froze. Ruiz's voice hardened. "You assaulted an unarmed young woman, unprovoked. You escalated deliberately. You ignored protocol, and you lied on record." Mike glanced at the captain, eyes still burning. "Your camera caught everything?" "Every second," she confirmed. "And your daughter will get justice." Mike nodded slowly. The other officers approached Bradley. He instinctively raised his hands, confused and horrified. Wait, guys, come on, you know me. Bradley Kent," Ruiz said. "You are suspended effective immediately pending termination and criminal review." The word termination struck him like a blow. No, you can't. I've been here 15 years. "And you've been a problem for 15 years, Ruiz replied. Bradley opened his mouth again, but suddenly, unexpectedly, his breath hitched. His face twisted. His bravado crumbled completely, and he broke. Not physically, emotionally. Bradley dropped to his knees, hands shaking violently, tears forming in the corners of his eyes. The weight of his actions, combined with the looming presence of Mike Tyson, crushed the last fragments of his ego. I didn't mean to," he sobbed. I lost control. I thought she was mouthing off. I thought..." Mike stared down at him, his breathing slow and dangerous. You didn't think, Mike said. You enjoyed it. Bradley covered his face with trembling hands. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's too late for sorry, Captain Ruiz snapped. Stand up. Two officers lifted him. Bradley didn't resist. He couldn't. His legs felt like water. Ruiz turned to Mike. Mr. Tyson, I want you to know this department will handle everything. Your daughter will not have to be dragged through a long court process. We saw the truth. Mike finally knelt beside Amira, checking her arm gently. You okay, baby? He asked. She nodded, even though the pain showed in her eyes. It really hurts. We're getting you to a hospital, he said softly, kissing her forehead. The captain gently placed a hand on Amira's shoulder. I've already called an ambulance. As they waited, the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, and flashing red-blue lights painted the road. Officer Bradley stood between two colleagues, broken, not by fists, but by truth. He looked smaller than he ever had. The badge he abused for years suddenly felt like a chain around his neck. He looked at Mike again and shuddered because Mike Tyson never touched him. He didn't need to. The intensity of being confronted by the heavyweight's composure, his disappointment, his fury and silence had shattered Bradley more deeply than any punch. Mike looked back at him one last time, and the officer flinched. Bradley, Mike said, voice calm but lethal, you picked the wrong kid to bully and the wrong father to try. Bradley lowered his gaze. He couldn't hold those eyes, not for a second. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics rushed to Amira, placing her arm in a stabilizer and loading her gently into the back. Mike climbed in with her, his protective presence filling the space. Before the doors closed, Captain Ruiz spoke up. Mr. Tyson, your daughter will have full support from the department, and Bradley Kent will never wear a badge again. Mike nodded once, grateful but still simmering. The doors shut. The ambulance drove off. And Officer Bradley Kent watched it leave, knowing his career, reputation, and false sense of power had ended on that quiet stretch of highway. Because he made the worst mistake of his life. He hurt the daughter of a man who would fight the world for her. But in the end, it wasn't Mike Tyson's fist that destroyed him. It was Mike Tyson's silence. And as the ambulance disappeared into the distance, one thing became clear. Justice doesn't always roar with fists. Sometimes it speaks in silence, truth, and the strength of a father's love. What happened on that highway changed lives, ended a corrupt career, and reminded everyone watching that real power is not in a badge, but in integrity. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful, emotional, and thrilling tales just like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another one. Your support helps these stories continue. Stay tuned. More incredible stories are on the way.